Hi, and welcome back to Crossville. I'm Lindsey Waldrep, and we're here at Coverings. By now, you've heard several of our live presentations. You know that we're talking about bold blends and designs. For this session, we're going to be talking about commercial design. It is the heart of what we do here at Crossville, and we have two really fabulous people here from the Atlanta area. To my left, we have Louise, Labus, Associate Principal from Collins Cooper Carusi Architects. And then also with us is Shelly, Attila. She's the project manager from May Architecture and Interiors. So let's get started in this live session to see what these influential leaders think of commercial design today. So ladies, each of your firms have several areas of focus. With your experience, what do you see as the vertical segment that has changed the most in the last 5 years, and how?
Well, what I've seen in the markets in general is that people are having to be more flexible in general because of the way technology is changing, both on our end and the manufacturer side. We are able to adapt to market needs more quickly. So in the past, even firms, we would stay in our one path. But now, since the recession, we have opened up to other market sectors, and from a manufacturing side, they're able to create new products faster and on market demand. So I think in general, everyone is responding to the market faster in real time and responding to needs versus assumptions on what the market wants.
Interesting. Louise?
I look at it that a lot of our markets are crossing and blending. So you have not only residential, hospitality, office, all of those products now are blending across the line. So in that, you have a lot of different components to it, a lot of new innovative designs to it, and with the products being available through those different lines and through the different aspects of all materials, it makes a design more fun.
Now, I'm going to go off of our prescribed question list because you just said something that is kind of interesting to me. We read about how residential is blending into commercial and commercial is blending into residential. What's one thing that you think has had like the biggest crossover from residential into commercial and vice versa?
I would probably say some of the tiles that you would use in different sectors, as well as furnishings. Furnishings tend to want to be a little bit more relaxed, not quite as office and stuffy as we used to look at them, and not so linear. The blending of spaces really takes on spaces that people can go to find comfort. I mean, we're in the office or commercial spaces so much more than our home, so why not have a feeling more of comfort and home?
I would totally have bean bags and bouncy balls in my office instead of formal chairs, and actually have done that before. So that I can get. We read articles and studies that tell us that designers and architects' relationships with manufacturers have really, really changed over the recent years. And I know that we feel that at Crossville, and our A&D reps tell us. What are some of the ways it's changed for you, and how in firms or manufacturers adapting alike as we move faster and broader in the scope of what we do?
Well, really, designers and manufacturers, we're partners. We're in this together. We're both ultimately after the same goal. We want quality products and solutions to meet our clients' needs. In order to do that, our conversations have to be honest and real with each other. From our side, we want the manufacturers to be forthright about what their products can do and what they can't do. Like, let us know the shortcomings of those products. And vice versa, the manufacturers want us to be truthful in our feedback to what they're bringing to the market. Do we think it's meeting our clients' needs? If not, tell that to them so they can respond, and together we can come together with a collaborative solution instead of working independently of each other.
I agree with that. Also, there's a lot of understanding what the product is made of. We have a lot of well now, so there's a lot of draw to making sure that there's no VOCs or low VOCs and more natural materials. And the representatives really support us with the knowledge of what that material is so that we can appropriately use it in the projects that we're using.
There's so many different programs right now when it comes to wellness or sustainability or the Red List or Living Product Challenge is one that we just recently got involved in. It must be really difficult to stay abreast of what the latest certification or classification is. How do you, Louise, do that?
It is challenging because there are a lot of changes being made in each of those and a lot of advancements constantly. So we do have to always be on top of it. But I think that's very important for us in the field to make sure that we are taking care of the environment, that the products that we specify are also a part of that, and that we gain the knowledge from the representatives to be able to support that. And well is now a new thing, but LEAD is also there, and I think we support all of them and what they do. And for me, I've done it for probably 20 plus years, and just feel very strongly that we need to take care of the environment for now and for the next generations to come.
So this is something that you and your firm focus on. Do clients often ask for these things from either of you, or is it more kind of a culture within your firm of how you pursue project work?
We work on projects that do request it. Government projects have certain criteria. There's also a couple healthcare clients that I have, one who was the first LEAD medical office in Georgia, and his space, he's a plastic surgeon, and he really wants everything to be no off-gassing, nothing, because he is treating patients that are affected by all of those things, and he's very highly sensitive in it, and he really, outside of even what he does medically, supports and is on a lot of different boards to enhance that.
Shelly, do you find more people are asking for those things, or that you're making recommendations to them based on your knowledge?
Well, a lot of our clients, that's not one of their specific requirements. It's just something that we do now. Even 5 years ago, the word sustainability green, people were throwing that word out everywhere. It was their marketing tool. And now that's not really a viable marketing tool anymore. It is how you design. So all of your decisions, that is our filter that we go through. And if you are doing good design, you are designing sustainably. So from our end, we are, we're pushing back on manufacturers, even if it's not coming directly from our clients. We are pushing on their behalf because ultimately we're trying to make safe environments for end users, whether or not they know that we're doing it for them. And so again, having that open dialogue with manufacturers and getting those solutions to our users and just making healthier environments for everyone.
I love that. I used to live in a sick building back a long time ago, and I just know personally how much that matters. So thank you for that. Louise, I love the mission statement of your firm. And guys, it is, we pursue the enrichment of life experience and community in the form of meaningful, well-crafted buildings achieved through thoughtful and insightful design. Tell me a little bit more about the process of developing insights in your firm and how that affects the final space, and what's one thing that you've learned in the process that was a really aha moment for you with this kind of a mission?
We try to come up with very creative ways to get the clients to engage in the process. And through that, each client is individual in their process. One of them, for instance, was we had little parts that created Lego people because it was for the Boys and Girls Club, and we were trying to get them to create a person and walk through the entire space and have us tell us who they are, whether they're a child or whether they're one of the workers, and then how they got through it, how they were confused by the environment, things like that, to be more insightful into who's using it and how they're using it and what their thoughts are versus our thoughts. Because at the end of the day, the design that we do is for them, and not for us and for all the other visitors or users that come in, the guests. So that's one of the things that we've done for one project, but we do that for every project. We really try to come up with very creative and insightful ways to get the clients to think beyond where they're at today and not kind of be in a box.
I love the element of play with that process. Shelly, how about you? Have you had any kind of insights that made you have an aha moment, something you didn't expect?
Well, for us, it's the power of listening. So we start all of our projects with just listening to what the clients are saying. So clients know what they want, even if they don't realize it or even if they don't know how to articulate it. So when we listen, we're listening for what they're saying and what they're not saying. And so once you can gather that information from them, then we get to move on to these creative paths to create solutions with them. But a lot of that, that creativity comes from strictly just listening to them, their body language, what they're saying, what they're not. You can learn a lot from them.
I always think it's amazing when you start a project, any project with design, what people think that they know or think that they want versus what they really need can oftentimes change through the process with exercises like these. So that's awesome. Shelly, your biography discusses design challenges. So as far as the overall industry, what do you think some of the biggest challenges for design are?
Well, I think one of our biggest challenges right now is time. Our schedules are getting condensed, and they are only trending towards getting even more condensed. And that means that we have to be agile in how we work, and we have to change our methodologies in how we interact with clients, how we interact internally. So, it's not reasonable to expect the client knows everything on day one, is going to tell you everything on day one. The fact is, if that was true, we would have programming and we'd have construction documents and we'd be done. It'd be great. But that's not how it works. And there's going to be twists and turns. Something's going to be said on day one, day 5, you've done a 180. And just being agile and being understanding and a little bit of compassion on both sides is really how you successfully meet those ever-changing deadlines and those compressed schedules. It's really just being able to bend.
We do a lot of work and a lot of programs, in particular with the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, with up-and-coming designers. Give me a tip for how to manage in accelerated timeline workflow that firms are now experiencing for these young designers that are entering into their first jobs as they graduate really soon. I think some of them graduated this weekend, actually.
I think that the trick for managing that is you have to step back, assess the situation, and prioritize. It's easy to get into those nitty-gritties, and those will drag you down. You need to look at the big picture, prioritize, and that's how one bite at a time.
That's how you eat an elephant, right? So, Louise, technology and tradition are merging like never before. And we're talking about how we blend things up here. When and how have you switched to new technologies in your process, and what tried and true practices remain for you?
Technology is changing quickly, and getting the right softwares to do things quicker is really key, and getting to know that in the tools. But from the upfront kind of schematic design portion, there's a lot of SketchUp and other tools that can be used very quickly to convey the message of the design that you are creating for the client. But the kind of more process, general-oriented things are, your sheet setups and your layering and those types of things I don't think will change. To get the work actually produced and in a constructible way. It's more of the upfront tools that are changing to allow people to really see the design quicker, to react to it, to modify it before it gets into the construction phase.
I mean, in our office, we only do 3D modeling. The days of 2D drafting, they can't keep up with how our projects are changing. And so that naturally lends itself to, photorealistic renderings or virtual reality tours. But the fact is, those are communication tools, and it's a tool. It's not changing how we're designing, essentially. So hand sketches, hand motions, you can tell I'm a hand motion person. I mean, all of that they're communication tools, and that's the main takeaway from it. And you have to adapt that to the situation and to what part in the phase you're in or who you're talking to. So it's a seamless process.
As a manufacturer, we oftentimes are presented new ways of showing our product, well, whether it be even higher resolution printing, tactile printing, augmented reality experience, and things like that. How important is it to you when you are finalizing selections to have the real item in front of you, whether it be a wall covering or tile or a piece of wood for a finish? Does that still remain a tried and true that until you see the real thing, you don't sign off on it?
Unfortunately, the computer screens don't truly reflect the colors of the finishes, and in our world, that is such an important part of the design and how all of those colors go together and tones or patterns. So just looking at something on a screen is not going to cut it. In the end, you really need the material at hand.
I think for me, it's always going to matter to actually have that real piece, and it's exciting to hear that, because I know a lot of times people say, "Oh, just send me, a picture, just email me that," and I'm like, I can't pick a car without driving it, so that sort of thing. But let's talk about a few design trends. Commercial design runs the gamut in look and feel, from highly austere to incredibly cozy and comfortable in a local bar that's actually really a national chain. All of these things get really diverse. Is there one design trend that you are ready to just say bye-bye to, and one that you think that's really here to stay for the long haul?
I'm ready to say goodbye to industrial chic. It was fun while it lasted, but let's move on to something a little more clean line, a little cheerier. And in terms of what's here to stay, I think it's mimicking natural materials. As we get more sustainable, it is hard to justify taking more natural resources when we can use what we already have and do an amazing print on it. And the fact is, the durability of these man-made materials, they can't compete with the natural materials. So I think that's here to stay.
And I think some of the classic designs are always here to stay. Marbles, I don't think that subway tile will ever go away. It's used in many, many different ways, which is the creative part of it. But there's certain just good old standards that are great no matter what the design is.
I have had many a debate in these panel discussions about subway tile. And even we're featured in an article in a big newspaper that was about subway tile. And I think this show is really fascinating because it's almost, in the time that I've been in this industry, there's been an evolution from 3x6 to 3x12 to 4x12 to, whether it has an embellishment or just traditional, and do we use dark grout with white or white grout with white, and maybe even disco glitter grout with white. I was like, let's do exciting things with subway tile, but it will never go away. And I think it's kind of a little bit of a joke, at least from what I hear, in a, yes, we're going to use subway tile, but it's going to be different this time. So I always think that's kind of fun. And there are classics, and I think when you're working with a commercial space, I'm sure it's very different than and especially in scale of how long does this look, this feel need to last, and how does it, I'm going to go off page again, how does it evoke the brand of the occupant? Tell us a little bit about your process in understanding the brand or the culture of the occupant and how that plays into your design.
Well, for the clients that I work with, we're designing for 25 years. So we are not doing the hot color of the year or the new material. We are just doing good design. Good design lasts. And we've seen that in all historical buildings. Like, you still find them beautiful because they were designed cleanly and well thought out. So if you're going to have that fun trend thing, it needs to be something that they can change themselves, or it is affordable to change it. You can buy a can of paint, ripping out an entire wall of the hot new trend. That's really expensive for them.
The same for you, designing for about 25 years and
anywhere from 10 to 25 years based on, lease terms. If you're doing tenant spaces, those are a 10-year cycle. Mm-hmm. But when you're doing schools or public buildings, those sometimes have a lifetime in them of the product that you're putting in. So you have to really find those classic pieces and design it in a way that always looks fresh and new.
Speaking of, when you're making a selection, what's the average amount of time from the time that you select the product to the time that it is installed and that building's ready to open? Commercial has such long lead times. What's your average?
In tenant work, it's about 4 weeks that you're picking something, and then it's in another 6. But when you get to larger scale projects, normally you're picking something, but you're also modifying things as you go, because the process of design is 1, 2, or 3 years long, and it's really trying to find the product that's going to last through that span of time without being discontinued or changed.
Or for me, I sometimes get enamored by things that I see at a show like this, or when I go to Neocon or HD. How often do you change your mind in a process that long, where what you picked when you started, by the time you're done, you're like, no, I saw something I liked better? Does that ever happen?
I mean, it does happen, but it's going to be really cool.
Exactly. It's going to be worth it to change all those documents.
But for us, the design speaks to you, and you've got this vision, and that's how you're collecting materials. So completely ripping one out and replacing it for another one, it's going to be really cool to want to do that.
Well, let's switch a little bit to something that is kind of new in the industry and specific to tile, and that would be our porcelain tile panels. For us, some would say laminum, but the category is panels. And how that works in your product portfolio of the things that you like to use. How has this innovative product inspired you, and how are you blending it into spaces that you've designed?
I've used it for probably over 10 years from when it was initially kind of brought to the market here, and I love the product. I've used it in medical as accent panels. I've used it in corporate spaces as countertops. I've also used it as reception desk fronts. It has a lot of very creative ways to use it, and it's a beautiful product, and it cleans up so well, very durable, and the different styles are, to me, timeless that are in the line. So I love using it. It's a more of a challenge, I think, in the installation process than it is on our side for picking it and putting it into spaces.
That's one of the things I love about this show, is that in the back area of the show, if you've never been to this, there are installation trainings and demonstrations, and the equipment cutters are all here showing people how to use them to do it smarter, faster, more affordable. So training is a huge part of that. And if you're out there designing and you need an installer, you can look on our website at crossvilleinc.com, quick plug for us, and find a trained installer for that. How have you been using it to any of your spaces?
What we found is that this was a solution to user groups who could never have afforded slab, natural stone products. It solved a lot of problems for us. The weight of it, the size reduction of grout joints, and the way that it marries up to adjacent materials. The solution of how thin it is, that solves so many problems that you have with natural stone. Plus, you have the durability, and you don't have to seal it. You don't have to cleat it to the wall. it's pretty cool.
Awesome. Tell me a little more about what the last Crossville product was that you specified, and then overall out of the line, do you have any favorites? I have my favorites, so do you have any favorites?
I actually have a job opening in 2 weeks with the Buenos Aires Mood.
Beautiful.
Which is a gorgeous tile, and I'm really excited about it. I've seen it in, because that part is finished on the job, and I would say it's probably my favorite. You can't use it on too many jobs, though, because it is higher in the line. But overall, if you want something that looks beautiful and it's very classic, that is a gorgeous, gorgeous product.
I love the movement in that tile. Great choice. How about for you, Shelly?
Well, if you couldn't tell before, my favorite is Lamina. So we use Ai Naturale, and it looks like a Calcutta finish in a ballroom and high-end restroom that went together. So it was like what I said. It was a client who otherwise couldn't have afforded a natural stone wall. It's a high abuse area, and it just looks amazing. Like, you cannot tell that it is a man-made product. It's wonderful.
Is that here in Atlanta?
It's actually in Athens, and one of the bonuses for it is we have access panels on that wall, and because the product is so thin, we can put that product on an access panel and just completely blend it away, which we never could have done with a natural stone.
That is a great solution. I haven't heard of anybody doing that, but we're going to talk a little bit about more about that later, and maybe I'll stay at the Hyatt for the next football season. I'm not sure. So, last question. You know, design is all about making strong, bold choices. You guys push the envelope of what's new and next. What do you see coming towards the industry in the next 12 to 16 months? And how are you preparing yourselves and in your firms to meet the changing demands of the industry? That's a tough one.
It's a tough question, but I think for most designers, myself, is to really listen, be an active listener to each client, and to create those special moments for them and their space and for the guests that are coming. Bold may or may not, be a part of their design statement, but as long as you're creating a wonderful environment that supports who they are, what they're about, and that can be broadcast through the space for everybody, that's really, I think, what brings us a lot of joy in the spaces that we design, and just knowing that it's being appreciated, that it's lasting, that it's special to them. So
now that made me want to ask 5 more questions, but I know you ladies have work to do today. So Shelly, what do you see in the next 12 to 16 months that you're really preparing yourself for?
Well, technology is changing exponentially right now. We're having personalized technology at our fingertips all the time. So I think that our buildings are going to start incorporating that personalized technology, where our buildings start recognizing us as individuals and our individual requirements and preferences. We're already seeing that in the lighting industry. You can program the lights to recognize a person, their light, color, temperature, how the light levels that they want, and I just see that continuing on. And so in terms of preparing ourselves for that, the best you can do is provide the infrastructure for the technology, not to design solely around it, but to create environments that can adapt to new technology. It's going to keep changing, but to providing the infrastructure that can support those changing technologies.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming over this morning to Coverings and spending some time with us here at Crossville. Louise, Shelly, it's really been a pleasure. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and have a great Coverings.